It may happen this week, next week, or not at all. But at some point in time, I may get hit in the stomach with a freaking wrought iron. So I need to be prepared for it. And then if you're always expecting it, then you always do it.
All right, hi everybody, John Meadows here, back with my man Dave Tate, and hopefully yesterday you watched Dave talk about what exercises he likes to use to enhance your squat. And today we're going to be talking about something a little different.
Yes, we're going to talk about the technical aspects. To me, the things that really matter, the things that are going to make the biggest difference.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, the first thing, again, these are in no specific order, but they are 5 things. Keep your feet flat. Couple things with this. As I talked about in the bench video, when we start talking about verbal cueing and all the different cues that you're going to see, I'm doing away with those. We're not talking about those here today at all. What I'm going to talk about are some stories to help you to see what I'm talking about. When I was in high school, I started powerlifting when I was 13. So when I was high school, my squat got stuck. I'm not going to give you the numbers because people look at those the wrong way, but they got stuck. And I trained with a group of very proficient powerlifters. And one of the lifters that I didn't train with him, but he was part of a group that trained in the same place I did at the time. His name was Jack Buchanan. He was one of the first people, not the first, but a small group of people to squat 900 pounds. And this was single ply equipment. It wasn't, multi-ply really didn't hit at that time. It was a big squat. It was a big squat. He played football at the time for Findlay College, which is now University of Findlay. Long story short, he could squat. I was struggling with the squat, and he pulled me aside and basically said, look, your feet are moving around too much. Keep your feet flat. And I never thought about it. I never thought about it. I've squatted in work boots, I squatted in wrestling shoes, but my feet were just moving. So the focus was just push my feet into the floor, keep them flat. Don't let the toes come up. Don't let the heel come up. Don't let the foot move. Within 3 sets of just backing down to 135, 225, 315, so that was light at the time. So just 3 sets of light stuff to be able to reinforce that. My best squat at the time was like 600 for throw. I said I wasn't gonna say, but anyhow, I did my best triple for 13 reps, just because of that. No way without focusing on that I would have been able to get over 5. So that one little technique change, and I wouldn't even say that's a technique change, had a profound difference. So if you do think about what people say, you got people telling you to spread the floor, turn your feet out, I've seen everything with the feet. Everybody's trying to tell you to keep your feet flat. So that's what all I'm gonna say is that is the overreaching objective that they're all saying is keep your feet flat, grounded. Keep your feet grounded. The more grounded you are to the floor, to the earth, the more force you're going to be able to produce. So feet flat to where they don't move. Look at your videos of you squatting. I'm going to guarantee most of the people watching this are going to see their foot moving around in their shoe. You know, if it's a running shoe, there's no doubt it's moving around. Now, go look at the best power lifters that you can find on YouTube, Instagram, or wherever. Tell me how their feet move. They're boom, they're planted. This has the shoe doesn't matter. None of that matters. It's not there. The shoe doesn't matter, right? It's being able to keep those feet flat and grounded. So if I'm working with high school kids, it's feet flat, feet flat. There is no corkscrew in, out. I save that for the people what happens, right? And I'm hoping I'm getting a hold of you guys before this happens. What happens is people over a period of time start to develop these bad habits. Foot moving in the shoe, you know, foot turning in, pronating, supinating, whatever it's gonna be. Then you gotta fix that bad habit, all right? So to fix that bad habit, that's where some of those cues come in, where an experienced coach may tell somebody, push your knees out, push your heels out, there's tons of them, you've seen them all. The coach is going to default to whatever works for them and that athlete. It doesn't work for you. Again, the end goal, feet flat. It made a huge difference for me, and I've seen it over and over and over. You're gonna see it, guaranteed. And number 2, keeping the shit between here and here tight again. You know, we talked about that, I think, in the last video. So we talked about training the shit from here to here, so I don't have to say core, torso, or whatever it's going to be. Now we want to talk about what should happen there. And now we're getting into, you know, bracing, like the feet, it's rooting, and like I said, there's cues for all these different things. What we're talking about is your torso has to be that rock that I talked about in the last video. Remember, if you have a marshmallow in there, all the transfer of force gets lost in the marshmallow. If you replace it with a rock, the transfer of force goes through. The first time it really clicked for me was it was probably 88 or 89. I was competing in the Toledo Open, a powerlifting competition, and I was having a hell of a time with, it was 800 squat. It was a second attempt 800 squat. I think it buried me. And Louis Simmons pulled me aside, and I wasn't training in the West Side at the time, but I kind of knew Louis from helping me at meets, and told me, you know, keep your abs tight is essentially what he said. You know, he had different ways of explaining it, but it was keep your abs tight and try to break your belt. You know, keep it tight. Repeated the weight on my third attempt, and it was easy. It was night and day. Like, what the hell? Like, why didn't nobody tell me this before? You know what, they probably did, but they told me in some verbal cue way that I didn't freaking understand. So this is where you're dealing with all the different types of bracing that everybody's talking about. All I'm going to tell you is it has to be tight. What is tight? All right, if I'm going to have you stand in a squat stance and I had a broomstick, right, and just was going to whack you in the stomach, how are you going to tense your stomach? How are you going to keep it tight? Now, what if I'm going to hit you in the oblique? You know, what if I'm going to hit you in the lower back? What are you going to do to be able to make sure when I swing that broomstick, the broomstick's going to break, you're not going to break? What are you going to do? How are you going to do that? Are you going to pull air into your stomach? Are you going to flex your stomach? Are you going to bear down? I don't care what you're going to do. What are you going to do to make it so it doesn't knock the wind out of you? All right, now what if we forget about the broomstick and I'm going to use a bat? Now what are you going to do? Right? It's going to be even tighter. That's what I'm talking about. You need that type of tightness, because that is going to take the feet that we just talked about and control it moving up the body. So optimally, we want all this tightness to go to the bar, so we have the most optimal bar position, but the strongest bar position as well. So yes, you can listen to what everybody else says from the cueing standpoint. When I step back and look at everything, you know, the forest through the trees, again, everybody's saying the same things, but I understand why you're all getting confused. So make it so you can take a bat and not move. Now, what if you can take that bat while you're still squatting? Because that's some of the shit that I experienced at Westside, is while you were squatting, you may get hit in the side with a stick, or you may get hit in the side with the rod and pin, you know, safety from a power rack. I mean, they're not whacking each other like you're trying to knock them out, but you're whacking them in an attempt to make sure that that's tight, and you never know when it's going to happen, right? So, you know, I could be squatting for my dynamic work, and it may happen this week, next week, or not at all, but at some point in time, I may get hit in the stomach with a freaking wrought iron. So I need to be prepared for it. And then if you're always expecting it, then you always do it. Number 3, make sure the bar's even on your back. And I know the eyes just started rolling. I got a story for that as well. After my first shoulder surgery, went back too soon, but that's a different story for a different day. But went back too soon, started squatting, started training almost immediately. And over a period of, I would say probably within 2 months, I started to have hamstring problems, and then glute problems and groin problems, and it was all on the right side of my body. And I'm thinking, and at the time I'm thinking, what the hell is going on with my right side? First it was my shoulder, then it's my lower back, then it's my hamstring, and then it was my groin. And this went on for probably a year, and it sidelined my training for a year. I think I bombed out of whatever meet I did that year, because the training was terrible. It just was not coming together. A friend of mine came in, and keep in mind I was at Westside at the time, A friend of mine came into Westside, was watching us train, pulled me inside and said, Dave, why is the bar uneven on your back? What the are you talking about? The bar is off 2 inches on your back. What the are you talking about? We didn't have phones and shit. I'm like, film this shit. So he films it on his camera, and I look at it, and it's off 2 inches on my back. And then I'm thinking to myself, how in the can I be in this world famous club and nobody notices this, including myself, because we did film here and there. When we squatted, the monolift was facing away from the wall. Nobody's behind us when we squat. Look at a lot of powerlifting gyms. The monolift, people are squatting facing out. They're not facing the wall, because when you're watching somebody squat, there's not a lot you're going to pick up from behind them. It's from the front and the side you're going to pick up all the technical cues, except are they holding the bar even on their back? And when it's only slightly off, it can have that impact that just goes down and squirrels out the whole chain. Why was it off? I didn't have the shoulder mobility. It felt right when I got underneath it because it was so wrong. Because, you know, I never went in a sling. So my shoulder was still rehab. So it's tight. So I don't know, is it right, is it not? Because you just don't know. But because of that, it hindered my squat progress for well over a year. So from that experience, I learned how many other people are not carrying that even if it's a ½ inch or an inch off, it's going to make a difference. It's going to make a big difference. And then you start looking at how many people now train alone, so there aren't people seeing it. If you watch lifts on Instagram and how people film their lifts now, you're not seeing if that bar is a ½ inch or an inch off. And when I have people come out for the seminars and the things that we do where we're fixing technique, you know what the first thing is that I see wrong on everybody? The bar's a little off. So that's why I made it one of my top 5.
Hello everybody, my name is Alexander Meadows, and today I'm going to be doing the hardest trick ever, which is walk the dog.
Number 4, and this is getting more into the movement of the squat. The last thing to move when you squat is your shoulders. Think about it. So the hips move, the knees move, everything moves, and the last thing, shoulders. Should be the first thing to move coming back up. So when you're coming out of the hole, it should be like you're trying to heave that bar off of your back and throw it into the back wall. It's going to be hard for you to process. I get that. All I want you to think about is when you come out of the bottom, come with your shoulders first, chin first. I don't care what you say, head first, chin first, this first, right? Some people will say, you know, chest first, but I think sometimes that gets people doing some funky things. But understand what I'm trying to say. We want the shoulders to go first, because what if the shoulders don't go first? What if the shoulders stay here but your hips go first? Then you have that hip tilt, whatever they call that. There's different names for it each year. But that moves first, bar falls. But then you're in a recovery phase the whole time that you're going up. So optimally, it's going to go at the same time. But if you're focusing on that going first, it's going to almost ensure that it's going to go at the same time.
Maybe that's why so many people get bent over.
It is, because that's the hip shift, you know, I don't know what the hip lift was.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I forget what it's called now. But anytime I see it, it's like, well, this is going to go away in a year because this is just solved with the other thing. Okay, the last one, number 5, is focus. And that is, this is a weird one when it comes to the squat, because the squat can be an aggressive lift, but what I see people do with the squat is they think they're aggressive, but they're not. They're scared, you know, so they're getting overhyped in a way to think that that's what they should do because they're going to do a challenge set or they're going to try to break a record, and then they put themselves in this mental place, and let's say they call it a void, which I would call it. That doesn't mean that you're in a mental place that things are not processing. You know, when you're in a mental place like that, things should be processing automatically, you know, to where there's only focus on what you're actually doing. Everything else is going to disappear and go away except for the one thing that you're doing. You know, kind of like if you have your eye on a target, you're only focusing on that target. You're not focusing on everything that's outside of the target. When your mind is scattered and it's aggressive, all that is focusing on all the that's outside of the target, which is optimal. It's actually outside of your control. What's inside your control is that focus standpoint. Now that focus standpoint, it's not going to change if it is a 1 rep max or a challenge set of 20. It's the same focus. It has to be exactly on what you're doing, and that's it. So once it comes out, you're gonna, the old saying goes, treat heavy weights like they're light weights like they're heavy. So if you squat 405, 135 should be treated like it's 405. Take it out, focus, feet flat, abs tight, lats tight, everything tight, and keep it in there. Not get under the bar and now you're ready to take it out. No, the wrong song. You shouldn't even know what song it is once you get under the bar. It should be that focus, because the squat, I'm more passionate about that. So this is in there for that reason. But what I see a lot of times is the people who are the best squatters are not always the strongest squatters. They have the strongest focus for what they're doing, and they have the strongest ability to tune everything else out except that, and they don't fake it. All right, the people who fake it, you can see it clear as day. When they come up to the bar, before they're gonna miss it before they even do it. Or if they say they're gonna do 20, before they even get there, they don't stand a chance of doing over 12. The other ones, so you wanna be the other ones. You wanna be the other ones when you get in there, you actually do it. That's that focus part. So let's say it's a challenge set. Give you an example. Say it's a challenge set. You can't get under a barbell with a weight that you think you're going to have to do 20 or 30 reps with and be grunting and screaming on the first 3 reps. You're not going to have any oxygen. The focus is going to be, how do you conserve the energy? And if it's 225, you're only moving 225. You're not trying to squat 225 with 400 pounds of force on rep 1, because you're never going to make it to the end. So you got to stay focused on that, which means you're going to have some reps on that set that, yeah, this feels good, and you want to hit it harder, but you don't, because you got to be able to maintain it to be able to get through that 20. On a 20 rep set, rep 1 through 8 should never be a problem, right? Those aren't the hard ones. The hard ones are 18, 19, 20. And if you don't do the focus and the work on those first, you're not going to have the opportunity to even challenge yourself for those back end ones. Now the heavy single is the same thing, that focus, but it has to start before you get to the bar. I could go forever on this one, but as I said before, all sticking points are mental, physical, and technical. So I just put a little bit of the mental in there, because to me the squat requires way more focus than a lot of the other lifts do. So that's why I made that one of the top 5. Okay guys, we've now been through the bench press exercises, bench press tips, squat exercises, squat tips, which brings us to the deadlift tomorrow, which we're going to start with my top deadlift exercises. And then we're going to get into the deadlift tips. I can't promise there's going to be 5 things, but there might be. We'll see.